Well, today is the 9th day of June 2021. Now, as I've always said, we're fast tracking towards the end of mid this year. That will definitely mean that at least we are done with 2 quarters of the year. That is the first quarter and the second quarter. And that would usher us into later the last 2 quarters of the year. Now, so much to reminisce about how far we've come. We went through the election process. That's quite tedious it was. That is in the most early this year. Thereafter, we went through a couple of other activities, Matters Day, but most recent we've been also under the scare and the scourge of the second wave of COVID-19. Yesterday we also did see a couple of mayhem, places that did have mayhem in this town where we saw people stuck in town. Most saddening was the children who were trying to get back home, having announced earlier on again late last week on Sunday, where we saw the president coming out to make instruction that people would be going back into partial lockdown for some particular sectors. That is for next 42 days. We don't know how it is treating you so far. Are you part of the people who are stuck in town? Are you stuck at home, or are you stuck at work? That is something we want to hear and share with you in today's program. Now, today being Wednesday, it is that Women Crush Wednesday as well, and we'll start with Priscilla. Good morning, Priscilla.
Good morning to you, Felix Nkunda. Good morning to Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us into the middle of the week. Now, this day is special from all angles. I also pretty much by 10 p.m. last night was thinking, what a better day to actually have Women Crush Wednesday, with the list of vice president to cabinet ministers and state ministers that was released last night. A lot of exciting new members appearing on the list, and that is something that we're going to be digesting here on Good Morning Uganda. But away from that, it doesn't take the fact that today is 9th June 2021. It's known as the Uganda Heroes Day. Now, this Heroes Day come in remembrance of the heroes that actually gave up their lives in sacrifice so that this country could be liberated. When we remember back in 1979, when Idi Amin was overthrown, we had elections and Milton Obote was elected president. However, we had members that felt like this election in particular had been rigged. And because it had been rigged, you had Museveni and his friends and partners coming up with the LRA, and from the LRA they decided to go to the bush. And when they decided to go to the bush, that happened in 81 in January 26th, which we celebrate till to date as the Liberation Day. However, as they were planning to find a way for this country to have better governance, in that very same year, in June, on the 9th, we had a person who gave up his life so that he can protect these young men and women to be able to go to the bush and liberate Uganda. His name was Ididian Muchibi Lutamaguzi. He gave up his life when he was caught by the Liberation Army. He was asked to reveal the hiding places of Museveni and his counterparts, but he chose to sacrifice himself, among others that followed suit there through from 81 to 86. And in 2001, through a parliamentary act, it was passed that Uganda would then, from 2001 to date, remember the heroes that sacrificed their lives, sacrificed their properties, did everything to help in the aid of bringing peace and stability to this country, which we have enjoyed for the last 35 years. So welcome to Heroes Day in 2021. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga, and delighted am I to be here. Good morning to you, Robert.
Good morning, Priscilla, and allow me to say Happy Heroes Day to all Ugandans. Priscilla has just given you a detailed, that is background to why we celebrate this day, so I will not have to go back into that. But of course, also one other thing that the NRM government has done over the years, that they no longer only recognize the Bush War heroes, but they also recognize other people that really in this country have played a great role in various sectors. And usually this time around it's COVID-19, so we don't have that massive celebration that we used to have where people get they're honored. But this time around, of course, scientific way of celebration. But also Felix earlier talked about the situation that was at the bus park. Well, I want to thank government, and more so that is the State House, the head of the anti-corruption unit, Colonel Edith Nakalema, for the job well done yesterday, as we saw government move into these bus parks to the aid of students I must say thank you so much, because I remember yesterday, that's one issue, Priscilla, I told you that this nuisance must stop. And I told Felix, we can't leave all terms. I saw some arrests were being made yesterday, and I was, yes, thank you, government. I saw police vans, vans coming in, government trucks.
In short, we are very grateful that government actually came through and did give a solution to this. Free transport will be given to people to be able to go back.
But also, away from government, I also want to thank some sectors. For example, the Northern Connection, Northern Uganda, where we saw buses, the business community in Northern Uganda. Can you imagine, Priscilla, they brought together resources to ensure buses come free of charge, take children, students that head to that direction. Once you had your uniform, you had your student's ID, you just board and get there. They're converging at Gulu University, where they're going to be carrying out COVID-19 tests. Then after, they're going to be given to their parents. So I want to really thank that spirit of working together as people from that area to ensure that these children get home and safe. Very interesting, Priscilla, also in the field of transport, but also cabinet list. Yes, I also mentioned about it. That is something we're later on going to be, of course, diving into, giving some analysis, the newcomers, those that have retained, the surprise appointments, if there are any, but this and more we shall handle. However, you don't forget to take your Hallelujah Jinga tea and Hallelujah turmeric drink this public holiday that will help you so much quench your thirst, but also fight your immune system.
All right, well, you can start your day with Good Morning Uganda on our social media platforms on Facebook, UBC TV, and head on to the Heroes Day, as we'll be giving you live coverage in the direction and, of course, the conversations of the new selections that are going to lead this country alongside the President, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, for the next 5 years. Then you can also stream live with us on YouTube, which is UBC Television Uganda, for every single program that we have today, starting with Good Morning Uganda. And then you can also get live updates as and when they are coming in on our Twitter handle, which is at UBC TV Uganda.
We'll also have some of the stories that were in our last bulletins, and of course Felix will also take us through international stories.
Well, of course, quite interesting, Robert. Before we get into those stories, it's something quite interesting. Today, as we celebrate Heroes Day, just a quick one before we get into the local stories. Who is your hero today? Who do you celebrate? Priscilla, who do you celebrate as your hero?
My hero today is Madam Vice President, that is Jessica Alupo. Congratulations to you, Madam Vice President. You are definitely my hero today.
Robert?
I'll look at Rebecca Kadaga as my hero. She's mastered the art of politics, and she's back in cabinet, where many thought that after what she went through, she may not be there. So she's my hero. She's managed to play her cards very well and also still serve Uganda.
Well, I think Fandi Nakalema did quite a good job yesterday. Nevertheless, not that it was in her confines, but the effort. Many government officials hadn't picked up the interest for a couple of days, but the fact that she went ahead, I saw her downtown serving bread, soda, and I think it's a good gesture that we must speak on, and mostly as people in government. Sometimes that spirit of no care, I don't care, as long as it's not about my children, we should drop it. You cannot imagine having someone's kids sleep in a bus park. We had children there as young as 12, 13, 14. It is sad. I looked at these young girls, like hopeless there. Poor girls in sweaters, in uniforms.
And the irony of it is that they've probably been there. This yesterday was day 2, so you see them actually having maybe ended up being there even up to deadline day, which is tomorrow, and no one would have been concerned. Which is what was hurting me, that it is so sad that Ugandans, or at least this generation, is not considerate of one another. We're forgetting that at the end of the day, this is a fellow Ugandan to me. This is my brother, this is my sister. What concerns her concerns me, so I should take care of those that are around me if they're in less capacity to take care of themselves, given such a situation most especially. So even I'm equally happy to the officials that came out to do something about this state.
So we will go now into our local stories, and Robert and Priscilla will take us through the stories that did trend the last 24 hours.
Talking about stories that are trending away from the cabinet appointments, and of course there being Heroes Day, we look at COVID-19, more so downtown when it comes to the business community, where the association that brings together arcade traders operating in various malls within downtown Kampala wants government to intensify messages of prevention of COVID-19 to tenants and clients to comply with the SOPs. The chairperson Kampala Arcade Traders Association, Kata, Katongole Godfrey, said the compliance follows awareness of coronavirus spread. People operating business downtown Kampala are slowly being conscious about the existence of the killer coronavirus, which is spreading fast in Kampala and surrounding districts. Members of Kampala Arcade Traders Association attributed this to the presidential address over the weekend, the current statistics on cases of COVID-19 and the general situation with big numbers of people getting flu and cough. Unlike the previous months, where there was laxity on washing hands by clients entering arcades, people have started utilizing the available washing facilities at entry points. Some of the shops have temperature guns to measure temperature of clients, with security at the gate monitoring hand washing.
Passengers are still stranded at different bus parks within Kampala city ahead of Thursday, 10th June deadline. President Museveni issued the deadline to allow parents collecting children from school before the inter-district travel ban takes effect. As the clock ticks to the 4-day deadline for inter-district travel restrictions, there was issued by President Museveni on Sunday. Bus parks in Kampala overwhelmed with passengers seeking transport to return to their villages. Transport fares have hiked. Majority of affected are school children and students who have to return home after the immediate closure of the schools on Monday 7th. At different bus park terminals, there is a struggle as passengers try to catch up with the few available buses. This shows that some passengers are claiming to have slept at the bus terminals to sneak a chance to board an available bus at the earliest time of convenience. Namayimba bus park manager Nelson Sekandi says transport fare hike is because of the one-way route.
Still on issues of transport and the 10th deadline that was given, thousands of people from different parts of Uganda were stranded in different bus terminals and taxi parks downtown Kampala. The crisis was attributed to the scarcity of vehicles to ease transportation means, not excluding the high traffic jam at peak hours and the risk of curfew by police have further worsened the situation. This gave public transport where districts were stopped, where vehicles were stopped from inter-district movements beginning with 10th, but the travelers were doing all it takes to ensure that before the deadline, they are already at their destination. However, the directive attracted unprecedented overcrowding in bus terminals and taxi parks as travelers were scrambling for the scarce means of transport to leave the city, where costs of living is expected to be high in this time. Kalyango John, aged 60, was one of the people in the new taxi park heading to Chotela. He said he came in the wee hours of the morning, but by 3 p.m. he found himself seated still waiting for a taxi. Jinja, Palisa, Busia, Fort Potro and other districts were found passengers still stranded at the park with lost hope of having means of transport to their upcountry homes. Transport fares remain hiked according to travelers.
Well, we hope that there will be some leniency given the fact that we have a time frame, which is deadline being tomorrow, and yet the pressure is still on for the transport sector to ensure that they abide by the directive that was given at the start of this week by the president. But away from that, on the international scene, one wonders what is happening to Palestine and Israel. Is it quiet now? And what is happening for Myanmar, where the former president is going to be put on trial?
Priscilla, far from all those two issues, there's something quite also making news where we do see the Vice President of the U.S., that is Kamala Harris, under pressure to visit the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, we did see the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who faced pressure to visit the U.S.-Mexico border as she tackled the record migration spike on her first official foreign trip. Now, Harris had a testy exchange with the news anchor who asked why she had not gone to the U.S. southern boundaries. Now, members of the Ms. Harris' own Democratic Party, meanwhile, assailed her after she warned against illegal immigrations. Now, we have also seen a precedent that at least 178,000 undocumented migrants arrive at the border this April, the highest total more than at least 2 decades. Now, the Vice President's staff initially said the border was part of Ms. Harris's portfolio when U.S. President Joe Biden assigned her in March to stem migrations from Latin America, but ADs also have recently been seeking to distance her from the politically toxic crisis. Now, still speaking about US, we see the FISA to expand tests for COVID-19 vaccine in children below the age of 12. And the FISA has said it will also begin testing COVID-19 vaccine in a larger group of children below the age of 12 of age after selecting a lower dose of the shot in an earlier stage of the trial. Now, the study will also enroll up to at least 45,000 children at more than 90 clinical sites in the United States, Finland, Portland, Spain. Pharma company said the vaccine made by FISA and its German partner BioNTech is already authorized to for emergency use in anyone below the age of 12 and older in that sense, but in particular countries like the US, Canada and other European Union members. They also have received the same dose in at least a bid to also curb the coronavirus. Now, coming back to Africa, we'll be looking at a Tigray conflict where we have seeing no food and no face. We will face death. People in the district of Ethiopia's Tigray region have told the BBC that they are on the verge of starvation. We don't have anything to eat, a man in Kafta Humere said. Now, saying the crops livestock had been looted during the 7-month war, and he also added that we are being prevented from seeking aid by militia fighting with government forces. The testimony comes immediately after we saw the UN chief Antonio Guterres had also warned that this part of Tigray is on a brink to get into famine. Now, however, a conflict also erupted in November between Ethiopia and the government, the Tigrayan rebels, forcing to close at least 2 million people homes and also to be dissettled from their own premises. This would mean that they would have nothing to eat as food and also had lost their livestock. Well, clearly that is also what is happening on the spectrum of international stories, and now much of that is what we'll be also sharing when we come back in our newsroom. Robert, Priscilla and I will also be discussing the new appointments by the president that will drive leadership in terms of the cabinet and those that will assist the cabinet. We'll take a break, have a song for the day from Beyonce, that is Brown Skin Girl. When we come back, me, Priscilla and Robert will be picking up from that particular song.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Charles Odongto.
Was brought to you by.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Sync points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
The Teacher Management Information System, TMIS, is one of the innovations the Ministry of Education and Sports has rolled out to have all teachers register online. This is in line with the spirit of the National Teacher Policy to professionalize the teaching profession and the Ministry's effort to collate teacher data in a single database for better teacher management. Join us as we host officials of the Ministry of Education and Sports to discuss the Teacher Management Information System. The show is sponsored by the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, under the Norwegian Teacher Initiative in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Sports.
Therefore, understanding this model. Hey, excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It is Heroes Day, and in case you're home and wondering why is it that today is a public holiday, well, it's Heroes Day, and that is why some offices will remain closed in honor of the gallant men and women who sacrificed for the current situation of this country. It is also a day where yesterday, by closure of business, and cabinet list was out. And of course, this was some time waited for some people, but of course a constitutional right given to His Excellency to appoint members he's going to serve with to come up with a proper cabinet. And the list was as follows. I understand Felix will be discussing some of these appointments, beginning with that is the Right Honorable Vice President, Honorable Jessica Alupo, a retired major. Jessica Alupo takes on that position, And Felix, if we were to talk about Jessica Alupo, she was once Minister for Education. We remember her so much in the struggle that is Northern Uganda also, one of the people that ensured at least they take on issues regarding security in that region, and now she's back to cabinet as a vice president.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting and a shocker. I must say, for most of people, it must be a shocker and interesting. The expectation was it with Jessica Alupo at least. But I think for those who read between the lines, when they saw her back in parliament, that was quite symbolic that she must end somewhere in cabinet, though not necessarily in the position of vice president. But I think she's a cadre to start with, and she's also she has served. She has served, and I believe with that background, she will give us a good feed. And also for the women who are saying, I remember in this whole struggle of the speakership, the women have been left nowhere. The women are clearly, the president has answered. We in that position where we see that now the lady who takes the second office of the land is a woman, indeed.
Moving on, that is the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Robin that is Nabanja, and also leader of government business. She's been around, she's been in the Ministry of Health, but also one of those cadres. We have to talk about cadres, and a good mobilizer, I must say.
Well, indeed, away from just those two definitions, again, I would want to focus the first three positions in terms of sex or gender. Sex may sound a bit, but let's look at gender. The president is trying to answer these whole anomalies of gender balance in terms of leadership. And most recently, if you look actually at the cabinet, you'll be surprised that it is by far women. There's something quite interesting. Now, it is a first of a kind, if I'm not mistaken, that we're having a female prime minister in this office. Nabanja has worked in cabinet and close to the president in matters of national concern. She has also been well grasped into the matters of the party as well. However, is that enough? You are looking at Honorable Nabanja in a parliament that has a grown opposition, a leader of opposition who is also quite tactical and grounded at that. We are looking at a time where we have the appointment of the likes of Honorable Nabanja with true resistance that is regional. Now, if you want to look at the aspect of gender, you may also want to bring in the clue of regional balance. There's a merger there that is trying to bring in His Excellency, is trying to bring in terms of how NRM is cast on ground. However, the big question is, away from just the issues of region and issues of gender, shall this team serve the purpose? Thereafter, you have the likes of Honorable Rebecca Kadaga in office for East African Affairs, then also Alhaji.
Well, you have First Deputy Prime Minister, that is Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, former Speaker, and also doubles as Minister for East Africa Community Affairs. Did you expect this? Did you see this?
As I was saying, Robert, that in that office, if you want to look at it as a wholesome, it has to deliver as a whole office. The Right Honorable Nabanja, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, and Moses Ali. Because their work in Parliament is to represent government business conclusively. Now, the question is, you bring in the likes of Kadaga in times where you have a high frictioned relationship between Uganda and the likes of Rwanda, but you also want to work on two East African projects like the oil pipeline, you have the railways, and just to mention but a few. So that speaks in too much. However, you've seen
given her experience and of course
with Rebecca Kadaga, she's undoubted. There's nothing to doubt about her in terms of demeanor, in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, in terms of relations, in terms of mention it. I don't think I would doubt her on any front. Honorable Robina Nabanja also maybe comes in on the spectrum of religion, the Catholic Church. There's that card if you want to look at it from that angle. But with due respect, I think her performance in that place is what we expect to see, because we cannot compare it to any. She has not held a position at that magnitude that it's easy for us to relate, but we just await to see.
Well, the list continues. We go to now Minister for Education, that is Honorable Janet Kataha Museveni. She retains, that is the ministry she's been heading, and of course still in that docket. Moving on, looking at the cabinet list, we see Minister Office of the President, that is Miss Mariam Deka, taking on their Balanda, also a person who we believe takes that position as well. Then Minister, that is Office of the President, Honorable Jim Hwezi, and this is in charge of security. He bounces back to cabinet. Remember, he has also held various positions, from health, Minister for Information. He once lost his seat. He retained, now he came back in the 11th Parliament. Jim Hwezi.
I think Muhwezi is a very sober and sharp guy.
Yes.
In fact, he's among the very few people in the leadership of Museveni I admire. Among the very few people, there are not many that you would admire from time. He's a smart guy, he's a sober guy, he's on point. I think, and he has headed security agencies before. He's also historical, if you may not forget, he's a general at that, if I may say. So the few people I'm excited about is him. And I know he'll do a good work in times of these bijambia, in times of attacks and gun violences that we've seen. But again, every position, some of these key ministries you see, you must relate them to the opposition. The opposition. So what is the intention behind? What is the role of the security in terms of containing the opposition? But also, you must look at people. Now, something you must be interested yourself with is there are people that cabinet needed to have people who are not afraid to confront the aggression of the Western world. Something you must keenly interest yourself with. That's why, and when you're looking at the likes of the Honorable Jessica Lupos, the Nabanja, the Kadagas. I remember one time Kadaga facing off, I think they were in a parliamentary summit, someone told them, you're wasting our time. And I think for me that is the spirit. Now, the president is keeping alive that spirit. Now, the Jim Muhwezis are not people you want to sway around in terms of what? They are sober-minded people in terms of execution and administration. So Muhwezi comes in on
and also deeply rooted into that is terms of party and loyalty. Jim Muhwezi, there's a people can't doubt. Then we have Minister Office of the Prime Minister. We have there is a Minister for Kampala Capital, that is Hajat Misi Kabanda.
Yeah, well, Kabanda's been around. Kawada has been around. Of course, she had some issues. She made a lot of noise and what, but now she's back. She has been speaking with the heart of Kampala. We hope that heart is deflected. You see, as she has been on the outside of the fence, now she's inside the fence.
Of course, Kampala is one of those complicated areas, more so when you look at how affairs have been. There are so many issues regarding trade issues. You also have the political. It is the base where we see most of these tactical issues. But of course, we've also had challenges when it comes to that is the technical, the political wing as well. The Lord Mayor Lukwago there also equally posing challenges, but hope she'll be able to sail through. Priscilla Nalwoga, when we look at these first three top positions, we see an issue of gender. Now we are going to have the Vice President, we are going to have the Prime Minister, we are going to have the First Deputy Prime Minister, all women, element of gender. This is one of the things that you usually want to ensure it sells through in every discussion.
Your choice of words is interesting. It's an issue of gender. So when the president was making his selection, you didn't think that he put into consideration the issue of gender? Well, I think we are very excited to see how we see women in power in such positions actually changing and transforming this country. Given the presidential speech that we had at the inauguration, I believe that he has selected the right team to be able to conduct the business for the next 5 years. But of course, we do have to attest to the fact that for the women that he has put in power, you do have you know, the former ED of KCCA, who did such a tremendous job. Till date, people are still crying, where is Jennifer Musisi? Bring back Jennifer Musisi. You do have the Kajinas of this world that have made tremendous effort in changing the face value and the action value of UNRA, and they have surely done their work to the best of their ability. So these are examples of women who continue to actually cause the different ministries to thrive in such a time and economy as the Uganda we are in 35 years down the road, as we are celebrating Heroes Day. So I'm quite excited that these women are going to make more fundamental decisions. I mean, we've had members of parliament in the secret corridors even crying for Rebecca Kadaga no longer being the Speaker of Parliament, simply because there's a way she attended to the affairs of Parliament that was, one, very considerate and very concerned, that it was just not about politics, but it was about the wholesomeness of the Member of Parliament under her tenure. So we are looking to see these women being inclusive, these women being wholesome in approach to the way that they're going to be handling the offices that they have been appointed
It's said there, we still look at more on the list and who made it there. Minister for Karamoja Affairs, Honorable Maria Goretti. Kitutu, still a woman, takes it there. Minister for Agriculture, Frank Tumwebaze. Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. From gender now goes to agriculture. There we have the Attorney General, Mr. Kiriowa Chiwanuka. Here, briefly, Felix, a comment on the Attorney General.
He's not doubted. His experience, his knowledge, his demeanor, and his taste is unmatched. KK is better placed. We need such an Attorney General.
100% agreement with you there. Then Minister for Energy and Mineral Development, Ruth Nankabira from Chief Whip. We now look at Minister for Finance, Planning, Honorable Matia Kasaja, and Economic Development. Minister for Foreign Affairs, Honorable JJ Odong. And we look at Minister for Gender, Labor and Social Development, Honorable Betty Amongi. Minister for Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Achen. Here she retains her position, and she's now, in addition to that, also a member of Parliament as well. There the ladies still have it. Then Minister for Information, our Minister Dr. Chris Balyomonsi, that is Information Communication Technology. Well, very special on Honorable, our new minister. This is a person I also really 100%, I'm sure he will deliver. He's been around in medias, and there's an experience I have with Dr. Chris Balyomonsi. One time, there's a show I do on radio. It starts at 5 a.m. So when we had the compulsory land bill, you remember, that finally at least was put to a standstill, this gentleman, I meet him, I'm like, Honorable, I want to host you on a show. I ask me, what time is this show? I tell him it's 5 a.m. He says, I'll be there. By 4:30, I receive a call from security. Kirabo, where are you? Your guest has arrived. I was like, this is commitment. This is commitment, really. And I believe he has been in the media, understanding so much on various platforms, and he'll push issues more. Then you have Minister of Lands and Housing, Honorable Judith Nabakoba, that is from Information. Minister for Local Government, Honorable Rafael Majez, retains that. Then Public Service, Muluri Mokasa, retains Tourism, Wildlife, Honorable Tom Butime, and Antiquities. Then you have Minister for Trade, and that is Mr. Francis Mwebesa and Cooperatives. Then Minister for Water and Environment, Honorable, that is Doris Mangusha takes it. Minister for Works, General Katumba Amara, retains. Ministers now of State, that is Office of the President. Minister of State, Office of the President, Honorable Peter Ogwang, that was from Information. Then we have Minister of State, Office of the President, Ethics and Integrity, Honorable Akero Rose. Office of the Vice President, Minister of State, we have Minister of State, Office of the Vice President, Diana Natukunda. Office of the Prime Minister, Minister of State, we have there Honorable Anyu Kune, and we have Prime Minister, Minister Relief, Esther Davinia, Disaster Preparedness and Refugees. Minister of State, Office of the Prime Minister, Northern Uganda, Honorable Kuchunyi, that is Grace there takes it. Minister of State, Office of the Prime Minister, Honorable Agnes Nandutu. Felix, Agnes Nandutu, Minister of State there from Journalism, then Member of Parliament, and takes it. As we come to the end of the list, we have Minister of State, Office of the Prime Minister, Bunyoro Affairs. We have Honorable Namiyangu Jennifer, Minister of State, Office of the Prime Minister, Teso Affairs, Honorable Dr. Angola Bote there. Then Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. Minister of State for Agriculture, that is Honorable Charunga Fred. Then Fisheries have Fred Bueno. Minister of State for Agriculture, Honorable Rabirama. And Fisheries, that is Bright. Then Minister of State for Agriculture, Aro Allen. Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. We also have Deputy Attorney General, Honorable Kafuzi Jackson. Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs. We have Minister of State for Defense, or both. This is also another good selection, one would say. Minister of State for Defense, Ero Hindu. Then we have Minister of State, East Africa Affairs, and Minister of State for, that is East Africa, Mr. Magode Ikuya. These are some of the appointments there. Cabinet is now full. We wait for business to continue. Now a few members of the NRM will be taking up some of the committees there. Very interesting. It's now sealed and done, dusted. People know who has taken that. But Priscilla, do you have some of these messages, congratulatory messages?
We're going to be looking at those congratulatory messages as and when they're coming in after you look through the papers, Robert.
Okay.
Yes.
I have the New Vision here, and the big headline, Women Eat Big in New Cabinet, Gender Factor. They're also still in the New Vision, 32 charged over bombs. Still, we look at school calendar, new academic year to start in September. Then we have Katumba shooting. Assassins stayed in Bukoto for 55 minutes after shooting. Yes, Felix.
Now, on the Daily Monitor, final cabinet list out while we see people who have been dropped and those that have been brought in. Now, Transport Mess raises COVID spread risk as travelers dash up country, and government blacklists 5 NGOs over fraud. Now, woman gives birth to 10 babies and new MPs cry out for salary. Now, of course, inside the papers, we'll be looking at President Emmanuel Macron slapped. The French president was yesterday slapped in the face of an official visit to southeast of the France. 2 men have so far been arrested. Now, police officer admits to rape and kidnap. And of course, from the archives, we see here Minister Saida Bumba arrives for the national budget presentation at Serena Conference Center in Kampala. That is in 2010. Now, in history today, Queen opens revamped Gatwich, and also in history, King Hussein survives assassination.
In the New Vision, we look at COVID-19 statistics. Now we look at a new confirmed cases, 53,961, death 2, and total death we stand at 383. That is Uganda as a country. Please not be part of these statistics. Today in history, it was on this date, the 9th of June, the year 1967, when Obote announces policy on abolishing kingdoms. Still on this very date, by the year 2008, was stranded offshores. That happened in Madagascar. Know your member of parliament. Today they bring you Stephen Serubula. That's Stephen Serubula, who is MP Lugazi municipality, and Charles Onene, that is MP Laroro Pecha division in Gulu district.
Now in sports, we're looking at Crane's fresh start, and we see Coach Abdallah Mubiru's final 23-man squad currently in South Africa include 15 players who ply their trade in the Uganda Premier League there. And of course, Kiplimo skips Rome Diamond League, and also Maweje targets trophy with Police FC after 15 years of last. Now Sewanyana 6 injunction for Magogo's sole candidature, and Big League Arua Hill Toro United on brink of promotion. But also FUBA wants to take advantage of empty universities. And outsider, Zinatex also in French Open semi-finals there.
In the New Vision sport, we see UPL still going on, and get that COVID vaccine or else no competition. That is much as sports the president in the restriction say they can still go on with no fans, but you must have a COVID-19 vaccination. And it is a Wednesday, Women in Sports. The New Vision brings you more of that. I see Aisha Narule there for you. Yes, Felix. A very interesting story that is made rounds on social media. The slapping of the French president. So this clip is moving around. Why on earth would one get to that level? Have people lost tolerance, or they no longer believe in dialogue and discussion and proper ways of handling differences?
Well, I think he was trading on wrong grounds. Clearly, as you saw President Bush one time in the Middle East when they threw a shoe at him. We have also seen a couple of attacks on presidents. You saw also the attempt on attack on the lady president. That is yet then what I think of the country where we see George Weah, where he's president. So many happened, but the question is, where was his security detail? How would someone get so close to the president to the level of a slap? Because that would be simply an arm's distance.
Is he also put himself in arm's way? If you know?
There's no arm's way. The president has security, has a detail. Whether or not they put themselves in arms, there should be someone to protect him.
We'll now head to Priscilla to give us more, and later on we'll be giving us more regarding how best we can get there. But let's first look at some of these reactions on our social media platforms.
Well, on social media, people are taking it to another level, congratulating the new list of ministers and cabinet ministers that have released. You have Office of the Prime Minister officially congratulating Honorable Robin Anabanja on being appointed the Right Honorable Prime Minister and Leader of Government of Uganda Business at Parliament Uganda and designated. So congratulations to you. Of course, we want to focus on women because today is Woman Crush Wednesday. So there's also another lady that we have been hearing about day in, day out in the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Now she has crossed over to the Ministry of Lands, and she goes to put a personal tweet on her Twitter handle. I am humbled for the opportunity given to me by His Excellency President Kaguta Museveni to serve as Ministry Lands Minister in the next government. I must say such is a rare opportunity, but I promise to serve diligently.
Well, what we can say is indeed we'll congratulate everybody that has made it to cabinet. There were some worries, people thinking, yes, some that may not have retained their parliamentary seats, but we've seen a couple of them now that have bounced back to cabinet. There's a time, yes, you've gotten the position, now it's time to deliver. That is what Ugandans want, and we hope that is what His Excellency appointed you for. Deliver, service delivery, ministry are very crucial in government, very crucial.
Well, of course, the expectation is high, I must add, at what Robert has said, but well, most of them who have gotten appointments, it's too early for them to celebrate. They are going to be sitting in warm chairs, as a matter of fact, and in terms of service delivery, and mostly, for example, you look at some hot ministries, like, for example, Foreign Affairs. We bring in the likes of JJ Adom, who has been dealing with internal affairs, quite a hot one. Nabanja, Prime Minister in such a government. You also agriculture. Tumwebaze, we are struggling, still struggling. I don't know, with this kind of experience, we don't know what, but let's be expectant. But also, you see now the CDF is part of cabinet. He comes in, and clearly you expect maybe a retirement very soon. So there's so much to speculate about the new cabinet. Nevertheless, at the end of the day, they're supposed to have an agenda to deliver to. We pray and hope and believe that they will be able to deliver this agenda.
Look at the traffic updates this morning as the country is waking up to the new cabinet ministers and state ministers. Some are very excited. I'm pretty sure people of Kakumiro are very, very excited to have now someone representing them, not just in the region, but also on the cabinet list. Congratulations to each and every one of you, honorable members. And we're quite excited to see the changes and the plans that you have for the future of Uganda in comparison and liaison with what the president did commit to us for the next 5 years. Looking at the traffic this morning, we get to have a sneak peek onto Bugolobi. That has been one of the areas that has been experiencing a lot of traffic jam in most recent days. The past 2 days have been cumbersome for Bugolobi. So we hope that everyone has gotten home, most especially students and children. But taking it from Ministry of Internal Affairs, where you do do have Honorable Jeje Odong as the Minister for Internal Affairs. Going all the way to Ginger Road, we get to see that Kampala Ginger Highway this morning has a clear way traffic. We also get to see that interaction of Kampala Ginger Highway with the areas of Lugogo. Around Gam Shoprite, you get to see that there is green on both sides of the Lugogo bypass. Now, from the Lugogo bypass, there is usually alternatives in case you want to have a lot of options in terms of the Kampala Ginger Highway, and expectations are that this jam is going to build up. But because it's a public holiday, most likely the route is going to be clear. But just in case you speculate that there will be jam maybe in the next 30 minutes, there is the alternative of you using the Lugogo bypass, and then from the Lugogo bypass you are able to use the route past DHL Express, and it will connect you back to Wampel Avenue. That then Wampel Avenue brings you down and drops you right at the Airtel roundabout, having avoided another 40 minutes that you could have wasted right here. So those are some of the considerations, but it's a public holiday. Do not worry about the traffic, that is for sure. We do have people staying home, choosing to stay home. Most of the traffic is going to be on the trade routes. You do have the Masaka Road is still going to be having and experiencing a lot of jam because people are getting out of the heart of the city. You do have the eastern route that is also very, very busy. We had bus fares to Gulu as of last night to the tune of 150,000 shillings for someone to get onto a bus to Gulu. Now that is expensive. People have had to take portions or buses in portions to be able to save time, and that time is surely running out because the president said that by 10th of June we're going to have border to border, district to district closed up for the next 40 days, because now we're on day 41. We're having a countdown to the 42. So we've done 2-3 days. We have just a few more to go, weeks, and that will be changing the fate of the COVID-19 statistics. Just to remind you, please do wear your mask. It's for your own benefit, your family's benefit, your community's benefit, and to the benefit of all of Uganda. And in case you do feel a little bit out of your system, under the weather, please go get yourself checked up. There is home isolation. You don't have to fear that you're going to have to end up in the hospital with a lump sum bill at the end of the day. No, there's home isolation, but directed by the physicians in charge of COVID-19. That is surely going to save your life. Equally, you must make sure that you sanitize and sanitize and sanitize. Buy your own personal sanitizer, put it in your bag, put it in your vehicle, carry it with you. Even for your children, they might be locomoting from one place to another. Buy them small sanitizers and ensure that they use those sanitizers. Even as they're returning home, as a parent, as a guardian, it must be your solemn duty to ensure that your child is having a mask every time they're stepping out of the compound and ensuring that they sanitize. And I'm glad for some parents, there's some toddlers I've been interacting with that actually can tell you when you come to their home, they will bring the sanitizer for you and tell you, Auntie Priscilla, first sanitize. Auntie Priscilla, do you have COVID? So the sensitization in the young generation is much better than us, the senior citizens. So please, let's ensure that we change that or even balance that up. Happy Heroes Day from us to you. Happy Heroes Day from Molen. Good morning to you, Molen.
Yes, good morning, Priscilla. Happy Heroes Day to you.
You're surely dressed for the occasion. You're very smart.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes,
so
yes.
On Heroes Day, what is the relation between heroes and climate today?
Yes, I believe everyone that is doing anything to restore nature, the balance in nature, is my hero and should be celebrated today.
Agreed.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so today yesterday we were talking about the whole fact that forestation is very important in dealing with the gaseous exchange that we have in our communities, and you did a good job in sensitizing us about that. Today, what are you sensitizing us about?
Yes, today we are still in a celebration of World Oceans Day, and we want to look at how much the oceans are contributing to our livelihood and as the ecosystem as well. All around us, we do benefit a lot from the oceans. Over 60 billion people depend on food from the oceans. I, for one, I like myself fish. I'm sure you do too, Priscilla.
Well, the question becomes, do you know your oceans? Yeah, I know the Indian Ocean for the East African region. So yes. Now the question is, what's the difference between an ocean and a sea? Because they're all large water bodies.
Yes, they are all large water bodies, and it's always really a confusion. But to say the least, we still get the same product: sea, ocean, lakes, rivers.
It is all water.
Yeah, so if you
some is salty water, some is fresh water.
Exactly.
There's also that conversation about it.
So
you know, because Lake Tanganyika is a salty lake, yes. And because it's a salty lake, it has crystal clear waters. You can see right to the depth of the lake. So please give us more of that information on weather and climate with Molen.
Yes, Priscilla. Now, as we go on to celebrate our World Oceans Day, we want to look at mostly this beautiful picture that I have here. This was taken by one of the international sand artists. And I like how it is saying, preserve our oceans for World Oceans Day for life and livelihood. Very beautiful picture there, taken by Sansan on World Oceans Day. Now, it also goes to tell us how much we have to appreciate our oceans and help preserve it, especially during this time in a decade where we're looking at most of our oceans being depleted. We are depleted. Now, a report says that 90% of what is happening in terms of human activities, we are depleting our oceans. That is through ocean acidification and also destruction of coral reefs. Now, this has taken a toll on our oceans and mostly the marine life. So the resources that we do get from oceans, that includes fish and marine life, are really being depleted because of what we are doing. Now, as we continue to celebrate World Oceans Day, we should also look at how much we do contribute towards saving our oceans and also saving the planet in turn. Well, let's take a look at what we have today across the country from our satellites. Well, above Uganda, we can see we have mostly very clear skies. We do have some clouds developing, but that is only across parts of western Uganda, only just a few clouds. Those will also be clearing off. They aren't bringing any rains right now, so most parts of the country are having mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. We do have that cloudy system that is also starting to develop across Mount Elgon Highlands, that is parts of Mbale. Now, that will be developing into some rains later in the day, but for now it is still really cloudy conditions with a mix of sun. Now, elsewhere in the country, we do still have mostly sunny intervals and temperatures are quite low. We'll be taking a look at our forecast today morning. We do have most areas though expected to have sunny conditions, but for the western parts of Lake Victoria Basin, that is where we have Masaka, Sembabule, Kalisizo, we do expect to have isolated showers over a few places, but most of the area will have intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, and temperatures will be rising up to 26 degrees. Now, looking at Mbale, Bududa, Sironka and Buko, we do have a forecast for isolated rains over there, with temperatures going up to 26 degrees. Now, for the rest of the country, we do have the central part of Lake Victoria Basin. This is where we have Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso, as well as Mukono. We do expect mostly a mix of clouds and sunshine, and temperatures will be 25, quite pleasant. It is kind of chilly, not too warm, but we will see temperatures going up as the day goes on. While looking at what we have for most parts of the country, we'll be enjoying a pleasant morning with intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Now, do stick around for more of our updates. We do have the agenda coming up, and later we will be taking you to live events. Jagenda Semakula will be around in studio to take you through the live events. You can follow the conversation as well on our YouTube channel. My name is Molen Kenyana, wishing you a very good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Therefore, understanding this model. Hey, excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Ekya COVID-19 kijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A busy week indeed, full of activity. Today we are celebrating the heroes of this country, but actually tomorrow is the budget reading. That is the national budget will be read out tomorrow. And now that we have ministers in place, of course, that is something that we are very sure of. And today we want to be looking at some of the priorities in the budget of the financial year 2021-2022. Remember, this time around we are looking at a budget of 44.778 trillion shillings that we are going to be ensuring as a country. This is expected revenue and the planned expenditure. With me in studios, I have Emmanuel Keith Kisame, who is a researcher fellow with ACCORD, and that is our Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment. Keith, you're most welcome to our studios.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me this morning.
Well, you're people who look at the budget, scrutinize the budget, but I want to first get your understanding or your definition of a national budget, briefly.
So the way to put the budget in a simple way is it is a statement of revenue and expenditure. But that in itself is still complicated. The simpler way to put it would be a statement that shows you your income or your money on one side, and on the other side it shows you your spending priorities. It's not any different from what we have in our homes, because at the end of the month or at the start of the month you earn an income, assuming that you're a salaried worker. And then when that money comes, you have to start planning for it. So you say we are expecting, let's say I earn 500,000 shillings a month, and this is how it's going to be broken down: rent, food, transport, and all these needs that you have. So similarly, the nation government does this on our behalf. We collect revenue through taxes and other sources of revenue. We get some loans from partners or from around the country, and then those resources collectively have to be spent on something. And always, as you spend this money, there is an aim. What are you trying to achieve?
This brings me to my other question, looking at priorities. Do we have our priorities right in our budget? Because Uganda have vision, we had 2020-2040, but also have the National Development Plan. So when we look at this budget for financial year 2021-2022, are we getting our priorities right in line to the areas I've mentioned?
Of course, it is, there is an attempt to follow these overarching planning frameworks that you've mentioned, the Vision 2040 and the National Development Plan. The National Development Plan, which you commonly hear being referred to as NDP3, maybe for the benefit of the viewers, NDP3 is our plan as a nation. It is the third in 6 5-year plans under Vision 2040. Vision 2040 is meant to have 6 of those. So far we've had 3. We are at the midway point of the third one, which is referred to as NDP3, and this is the basis for allocating the budget resources that we have. This year is the first year where we are allocating these in terms of programs. Before, we were allocating funds based on sectors. Now, a program is much broader. Previously, you'd have education on its own.
As a sector.
As a sector. Now, we are looking at human capital development, which has education, it has health, it has water, it has rural water supply, and a host of other resources that are needed for human capital development. So in terms of looking at it from a program perspective, the whole idea behind that is to make sure that we get our priorities right, that we have coordination, or we synchronize the monies that we have along these program objectives, as opposed to just sectors looking at their small...
Give this amount to education, give this to defense.
So now education and health are supposed to work concurrently to drive towards human capital development.
When we look at the budget, of course, what was approved by Parliament, as we wait for the final reading, that is going to be tomorrow, do you see this, is there a mismatch, or we are heading in the right goalposts?
I don't know what you mean by mismatch, but obviously, like any other spending entity, be it a home, you always have limited resources compared to the needs that you have.
Then that brings in what is a priority.
Yes.
So do we have our priorities right in the coming budget?
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in the sense that human capital development is the biggest, has the biggest proportion of the budget, about 26% of the budget. This in shilling terms is about 7-point-something trillion. I need to get the figures correct. I hope I have the figures right. And then after that, it is followed by governance and security. These are programs that I am mentioning. Thereafter comes integrated transport and infrastructure development. That is where you have the roads. Governance and security, I don't need to break it down. It speaks for itself. It has administration, it has what perhaps might be lost to some people is that in governance and security is where you also have things like treasury operations, the public debt that has gained a lot of attention of late is in there, how we are financing it and things like that. The next priority, I'll mention the top 4 because there are so many, there are 17 programs. The 4th priority in terms of allocating resources is agro-industrialization, which is where agriculture is, where most of the people in this country are employed. So those are the top 4 priorities. If you look at them in terms of the money that has gone there, that is, in my view, that is the way it should be. The challenge or some of the concerns normally arise in, as they say, the devil is in the details, in what is going where. For instance, I can give an example of human capital development. For so long we have been saying money should go more into human capital development than other programs or roads and infrastructure, because the social spending has been declining of late. Now, with that as the topmost priority, you have to look at where the money is going in there, within the program. And the challenge we've been observing in the civil society world is that most of this funding, the structure of the budget has not necessarily changed, even when we've gone into programs. Because, for instance, human capital development, when you look at education, the bulk of that money is going towards salaries of teachers. In health, the bulk of that money is going towards salaries of what? Of health workers, which is okay.
But it's human capital, yes.
Yes. The challenge now is the equipping of these workers to deliver service. That's where the funding shortfalls are. Because the health workers need resources to equip them to serve the communities that they are treating. The teachers need to be equipped with the necessary scholastic materials and what have you.
Even the teaching environment as
yes,
well.
the classrooms, away from the pen. We still have overcrowded classrooms, which in the current context we are in of COVID-19, I don't have to mention, to remind you that that's a danger in itself, or a risk to the population. So the nitty-gritties in there is where perhaps we need to get a bit of reprioritization here and there to focus on certain things, to focus on increasing the recurrent budgets that are not for salaries. And what I mean by recurrent budgets is money for day-to-day activities, for operational budgets. Those monies are still very limited, and as a result, you have so many challenges in the day-to-day running of service delivery. That's why you hear stories of people going to the hospital and there are no drugs. That's why you hear people going to a classroom and there are no teaching aids for the teachers and things of that nature. So that's where some of the challenges lie. Those are budgets that need to be boosted, especially in times like these. The final point on that would be looking at the health sector. Now more than ever, community outreaches to teach people how to prevent infections is a very important thing. Yes. But for instance, the village health teams are voluntary workers. There is no
the local councils.
The outreaches, the money for allowances for these health workers to be able to go and teach people about COVID, about other infections. There are a host of other infections other than just COVID that are perhaps even more lethal in some instances. Malaria is still killing people significantly in this country and other countries globally. So this COVID has not taken away the importance of these roles, but resources are not
allocated to that.
They are not sufficient. We were doing a study sometime last year, and we came to discover that there is no emergency allocation in the primary health care grants that we send to health facilities to use. So when COVID broke out, the health facility in charges had to be creative on how to get gloves, to get masks, because these are things that are not
Protective
ordinarily,
equipment,
yes,
chairs there.
exactly. Ordinarily, these are sanitizers. These are not things that we supply as part of the essential medicines and health supplies to the facilities. So money,
there was no specific allocation
exactly.
For that.
So money had to be reprioritized from other things like community outreaches, perhaps, into this, where the funds were available there, because these were important things. So those recurrent budgets really need to go up. And
well, another element, in the interest of time, Jagena Semakula soon will be connecting to him, and I'll be giving you details on that later on. But Keith, let's also look at financing the budget. This is another part of the budget that really concerns Ugandans. Of course, we know we have domestic revenues, we have grants, we have loans and all this, but this particular bit for the financial year 2021-2022.
So we have 44.7 trillion as the budget. Actually, it is 44.778 trillion. To simplify that, it is 44 trillion 778 billion, which is available in this budget. That's what we've budgeted for. What I need perhaps to point out is how we get the resources as a country. It's not that we have the 44.4 trillion stored somewhere on the consolidated fund, which is government's bank account, if you call it. The money that you're hearing, the 44.7 trillion, has to be collected. So we collect and then we spend. And essentially, what happens is that when you get, when you have your taxes, the money you pay in licenses, all this goes towards what is called a consolidated fund. That is what we call domestic revenue, the money we are going to collect within. And in this coming financial year, that is projected to be about 21.5 trillion of the 44.7, which means that we have to make up the balance. So we are funding close to half of our budget ourselves on the taxes and the licenses that we'll be collecting, which emphasizes the need for us to pay our taxes and ensure that government has money to spend on the different priorities. The other balance is made up through grants. This is money that is given to us by our development partners, the developed countries that we work with. And then the rest we have to borrow. Some of it we will borrow externally. Some of it we will borrow domestically.
Now, that's where it comes a problem. First, the domestic borrowing. Government, any borrower would want to do business with government, not the private sector. So where does this leave the private sector, and what is the impact of this domestic borrowing?
Very good point, and I think a very good question, and I think it's one of the things that we've been emphasizing in our advocacy efforts to government is that we need to temper the domestic borrowing. The reason for that is that domestic debt is expensive. What I mean by that is that the interest rates on domestic debt are very high. So it's important to borrow on concessional terms from the developed countries, which will give you money. First of all, the repayment periods for concessional terms are longer, usually not less than 5 years, and the interest rates are very low. The example I can give you is the recent money that we got from IMF that everyone read about in the papers, that we are going to get from IMF, I think to a tune of about 400 billion.
Yes.
That money has no interest. It is on zero interest. Now, when you borrow from the likes of IMF, World Bank, usually that money comes on concessional terms. Longer repayment period and and very affordable interest rates. It's not the case domestically. So already in terms of what is better, concessional borrowing is better. Perhaps we need to understand why we need to borrow as well as a country. The resources that we have are not enough, and like I have pointed out, we are collecting only 21.5 trillion domestically, which means the shortfall has to be made up somehow, and borrowing is usually the option. When you borrow domestically, commercial banks, like you pointed out, would prefer to lend to government because the risk of lending to government is lower. And therein lies a challenge of crowding out the private sector from the credit that is available. But also that perhaps explains why our the interests on commercial bank loans have not really gone down, because people in the commercial banks would rather lend to government, which can afford these interest rates, as opposed to lending to the private sector, which will complain over and over. Yeah. So that partly explains why, despite Bank of Uganda lowering its bank rate to a record low of like 7 to 5% in recent times, it has not affected the lending rates in commercial banks. They are still high for the usual.
Because there is demand for the loans and there is a better person in terms of guarantee and also ability to pay.
Precisely. Government always pays. Even if it doesn't pay you in time,
it will pay.
It will pay. You're sure. Some of the things that government has to do to make sure that the economy is reignited in growth, to make sure that credit is made available for the private sector. And how do we make it available is, first of all, making it affordable. And that entails lowering interest rates. How do we lower interest rates? Sometimes in times like the ones we are in, we might want to give banks some guarantees to make sure that they are able to lend to small and medium enterprises that are employing majority of the Ugandans in the employment world, in the informal sector. Yeah.
Keith, before I let you go, as we look at this budget, we know that a big chunk of our monies are going to go into paying public debt. There are also been a couple of discussions on various platforms where people are saying Uganda's public debt has exceeded controllable measures. I want your take on this in regards to the budget.
So our debt is about $17 billion currently. Okay, that is as of, I think, March of this year. But the biggest proportion of that debt, 3/4 of it, is external debt. The one that has been borrowed on concessional terms that we've been talking about, which is long repayment periods. Some of them are even 20 years and very low interest rates. So it is for that reason that you keep hearing people in Bank of Uganda, Ministry of Finance, the IMF, telling you that the debt is sustainable. What we mean by sustainability is the ability to pay that debt when it matures. Considering that majority of it is long-term and at low interest rates, it is sustainable. The challenge is that the interests that we are accruing from domestic debt, which takes a smaller proportion of about 25% of the public debt, are much higher. And these are loans that will be due in maybe a year. For instance, when you give a bond or a treasury bill, they are due in short periods. And that is money that government has to pay in a shorter time. And when you look at...
Well, sorry to cut you short in the interest of time. Thank you so much. That is Emmanuel Keith, Kisame, who is a researcher fellow with Accord Uganda. Allow me now move to the residence of the United Nations representative to Uganda, where there is a dialogue that is on the role of civic education in inspiring a new spirit of citizenship. And Jagena Semakula is already at the venue to take us through and give you more information regarding that. Of course, later on, we'll know that we also have to go for the Heroes Day celebrations, and these will also be coming in live to you here on our UBC station. So we'll keep you updated with the events. It is a time of COVID-19, and we really know we cannot have that massive attendance at this time. But of course, we just want to thank you so much for having been part of Good Morning Uganda this morning. I, Felix, and Priscilla, plus the big team behind the scenes, our producer Ruben Pima Chividango, our directors as well there. And of course, remember that you can catch up with all the updates on our Twitter handles, but also you can rewind forward. That is on our YouTube channel. That is UBC TV Television Uganda. And I want to thank my guests in studios, but above all, also congratulate all those that have made it to cabinet. Our friend Agnes Nandutu Kongs, we see just being represented there, and of course our Honorable Minister Judith Nabakoba as well, now being shifted to yet another ministry, as we welcome Honorable Crispa Diomunsi to take on this ministry. We're really excited for our new minister. I congratulate everybody, and most of the ladies in this country that have taken the lion's share when it comes to the new cabinet. I see Jagenda around, and I think allow me now head to the residence of the UN representative to Uganda for this dialogue. Which is focusing on e-dialogue on the role of civic education in inspiring a new spirit of citizenship. That is the dialogue that is happening there.